Let's fix the Cleveland Browns in 5 steps. I've got a 5-step plan on today's show to fix the Browns this offseason. What can Cleveland go out and do? Who can they bring in to just rebuild this thing right away? We've been waiting too long. I'm your host, Joey O'Donohue. Welcome in, folks. And before we get into my plan, you tell me, what's the number one thing the Browns should do this offseason? Comment below. If you could pick one thing that they need to do this offseason, what is it? You tell me, and let's get into this video. My perfect offseason plan begins with hiring the right head coach. Now, who exactly may you be asking? I think the head coach that you need to hire, of the candidates that are available and the options for the Cleveland Browns, have been reportedly narrowed down to Grant Udinski, Todd Monken. Sean McDermott could be in this mix for Cleveland. I think he should be one of your options. Nate Shieldhouse, and of course, just promoting from within, Jim Schwartz. These are the names that Cleveland could end up going in and or should end up going with to be their next head coach. Monken will be interesting, see if he follows Harbaugh or is offered the Browns head coach job. But I really do think it's between Udinski, Shieldhouse, and then there's like an outside chance that McDermott is brought in and wows them away. I think you go offensive, though. First part of this plan is you pick a young offensive mind, because this offense has been the biggest issue for Cleveland for years in a row right now. And if you do pick a really young guy, well, then you're going to need like a culture guy to be here, right? If you're bringing in a 30-year-old Grant Udinski who has never called plays before, or a Nate Shieldhouse, same deal. Well, you do want someone that's been exposed to winning, right? Like a Mike McCarthy or Harbaugh or Sean McDermott. But maybe that guy can be Jim Schwartz, who's been a head coach in the NFL before. Schwartz could mentor young Grant Udinski, okay? So you get an offensive genius in Udinski who's helped revamp Trevor Lawrence, who's worked with Kevin O'Connell, who's worked with Liam Cohen, and Jim Schwartz stays and keeps the defense the way it is. Well, then that's step one. Hire Grant Udinski or Sean McDermott, who brings an offensive coordinator, right? You need a new OC, and you keep Jim Schwartz. So that is the first and foremost, is you hire the right head coach and keep Schwartz. Next, fix that offensive line. You are not going anywhere if this offensive line is not addressed, if it's not your biggest focus, your biggest concern this offseason. Now, who can you get to fix that O-line? Well, number one, if you're sitting there at 6th in the NFL draft, and this man, Francis Mauigoa, is still available, makes it past the Cardinals draft pick, I would take him. 6'6", 315, okay? PFF grades for 2025. I mean, they're phenomenal. Overall, 83.6, and here's what I love. 87 pass block grade. Pass blocking was Cleveland's biggest issue. Run block, 79.4 as well, but he's a true mauler. The way he just throws guys around. Has only allowed 2 sacks, right? I mean, excellent play. Excellent play, and he went to a national championship with a Miami offensive line that was one of the best in college football. Heck, Carson Beck looked serviceable. Until, of course, it was time to make a game-winning drive, and they threw the game away. But he had protection all season long. That's why Miami got there, his defense and offensive line. Cleveland should be trying to replicate that. So I love the true mauler if he's available. If not, Spencer Fano starting to get a lot more buzz here in the latest mock drafts, okay? In a lot of the latest from Mel Kiper, from different analysts, that Fano could end up being a top 10 pick and even end up going number 6 to the Cleveland Browns. Now, he's a guy hasn't allowed a sack this year. 84.8 PFF grade overall in 12 games. And honestly, I don't think it should stop there for the Browns in this draft. I do like Fano a lot for his size, power, technique, right? He's also versatile. He can play either tackle spot. So you get one of those guys, whoever's available, and then you keep drafting them. Don't stop. Draft more linemen in this draft. Whether that's later in the first round with the Penn State guard like Oliva Vega-Ioane or Caleb Lamu, the other Utah tackle. You need to get a couple more in this draft. You know who you don't need? Cam Robinson. If you ever see people on Twitter saying 68 should be banned from the National Football League, they're talking about Cam Robinson, number 68 for the Cleveland Browns. He's a free agent. Let him leave. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. He doesn't know where to look. It's embarrassing. Shedeur was the most pressured quarterback in all of the NFL. I also wouldn't mind a new offensive line coach, just while we're talking about the unit. Like, guys, it's so bad. Bill Callahan, man, would love to bring him back, but Stefanski's taking him to Atlanta. Of course, Stefanski just didn't want to bring him back when he was available since week 6, but he's going to take him to Atlanta. I would still get a new offensive line coach. I mean, the unit's clearly poorly coached, and there's pressure in the quarterback's face every second. So, you draft offensive linemen. You draft Mauigoa or Fano, whoever's available, early, and then you get a couple more. Up next, you're also going to need a wide receiver, okay? Whether that's in the draft, whether that's through free agency, you can't ignore that position group this offseason for the Cleveland Browns either. And I do still think that the O-line is the biggest issue, and maybe some of these guys will be serviceable if there was protection. Like, I love what we started to see from Isaiah Bond when Shedeur came in as the starter. But who are you going to draft in the draft as wide receiver? Well, your top options would kind of contradict with my earlier plan, because if you want Carnell Tate, if you want Jordan Tyson, those guys are going to be top 10 picks. And I say you address O-line first. Mekhi Lemon, too, you're probably flirting with the teens in the middle of the draft, or he might even end up going top 10 at this rate because his name is rising through the ranks here. So this probably isn't a possibility all of a sudden. If you're someone that thinks they should use the pick on a wide receiver, that's totally cool with me as well. But my plan here involves you take the O-line first, and then you have that second first-round pick. Well, what about Denzel Boston? 6'4", contested catchability, deep ball, red zone threat, 50-50 ball. Strong. He's physical as well, right? Boxes out defenders. Makes plays on the ball. Love everything I'm hearing about Denzel Boston, okay, the Washington product. Look at this, 11 touchdowns last year, only 2 drops. I mean, does that not sound like a guy that Cleveland needs right now in that wide receiver room? Okay, heck, he might even be your number 1 right away over Jerry Jeudy, who fell from grace from 2024 to 2025. So I like the idea of drafting Boston, and I still think you add a free agent. Like, I still think that, you don't just get one wide receiver and call it a day. You might not be able to retain Malachi Corley. I don't think Gabe Larvidan, unfortunately, earned his way to be back on this roster. Tillman's kind of faded out towards the back half of the season, not only because of the concussion injury that he suffered, but not being involved in the offense too much. Like, you need another guy. So, whether that's Alec Pierce, Mike Evans even is a free agent, I wouldn't mind a little splash in free agency, but my number 1 pick here would be get Denzel Boston late in the first round, get an offensive lineman early in the first round. That's how you start to build on those 2 needs. So that's step 3 of the perfect offseason plan. That's where we are at right now, Browns fans, but we are not done. Okay, we are not finished fixing what needs a lot of fixing, and that is the Cleveland Browns in 2026. So before I get to the back half of this plan, let me tell you about our awesome sponsor, and that is PrizePicks. The big game is almost here. There's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. I love this app. It's a lot of fun, and I've been crushing it with the more on quarterback passing touchdowns this playoffs. But since I can't watch my favorite team anymore for a while, I want a way to stay entertained during these games and have something to root for. PrizePicks helps me do that. Missing your fantasy team? My league's already over. But with PrizePicks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football every week, even in the playoffs. Pick your favorite players and win when they hit their projections every week. No draft required. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports picks app. Drake May, more than 199.5 passing yards. Cooper Kupp, more than 1.5 receptions. And Devontae Adams, more than 3.5 receptions. That is my lineup for this Sunday. If you want to make one, try to win, you can download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It is good to be right. Next part of the plan. Tommy Rees is headed to Atlanta, and I never thought that Rees was going to stay in Cleveland. I don't think that would make sense. I am a little surprised that Stefanski wants to keep working with him next year. I mean, they only had the 1 year together as head coach OC pairing, and it was terrible in Cleveland. Guess they're going to try it over in Atlanta and see if it looks any different. Now, the key with your new offensive coordinator, though, is obviously that the head coach has the most say, and you're going to let whoever you trust to run this organization or be in charge of the roster, you're going to let them bring someone that you really like. Now, I will have a full video coming up with all offensive coordinator candidates for the Cleveland Browns, but I'm going to throw one out here for you right now, because if the Browns were to get Udinski for head coach, well, they really like Nate Shieldhouse as well, and they are giving him an in-person interview as soon as is possible. Well, what if you just bring both of them? If you love Shieldhouse that much, and he's worked under Sean McVay the past couple seasons, and you just think these guys are brilliant offensive minds, let's give them an opportunity to work together, especially Udinski, who is going to work his you-know-what off to study and be able to call plays for the first time. Well, what if you just pair them both together and keep Jim Schwartz to kind of mentor them both in terms of the leadership head coach aspects? Schwartz is very well respected in the locker room, I will tell you that, especially from the defensive players. So I'm just going to throw it out there. What if it looks like that? Udinski head coach, Shieldhouse offensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz defensive coordinator. Well, now you got a staff I think Cleveland could work with here, at least show a little bit more flashes, be a little more competitive in 2026. Finally, what to do about the quarterback situation to round out the perfect offseason for the Browns in 2026. Let's talk about Shedeur and a little bit of the quarterback situation in Cleveland. First of all, it's going to be very hard to find a quarterback. It's going to be very hard to find your quarterback in 2026 in this offseason. There's not a lot of options. The free agents are washed up names. It's Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, Marcus Mariota, Joe Flacco. Those are the top free agent quarterbacks. Is anybody out of their seat right now? No. Malik Willis is supposedly the best free agent quarterback option, and that's not even a short thing at all that he's going to be a great starter. I've only seen him play a couple games. So there's no options this year. There's no draft options either, right? The year after has some great draft options, but there's none this year unless you're going to trade everything you have to get Fernando Mendoza first overall. And I'm not going to script that for the Browns, because then you're not going to be able to get any offensive lineman if you give everything up to get one quarterback. So how about this? If you do follow my plan, if you do fix your offensive line, if you do get some more weapons, and Shedeur gets a offseason with actual reps in a better system, maybe you'll actually see that Shedeur can be your quarterback. Okay? At the very least, you will know next year if he can be your quarterback, because you'll have beefed up the offensive line, put him in a better position to succeed. There will be a new head coach, hopefully one that is offensive-minded. There will definitely be a new offensive coordinator that can scheme things up, put Shedeur in better positions to succeed, because Kevin Stefanski was not doing that. In fact, he was holding Shedeur Sanders back, and as we now know, he was holding Baker Mayfield back, and those two are beefing. So why not follow my plan and see? Now, I don't hate the idea of bringing in another quarterback. I mean, Deshaun Watson's still going to be on the roster next year. And who knows, maybe if Stefanski really was a quarterback killer, maybe there will be a revived Deshaun Watson this season. I don't know. I can't foresee that. But I can foresee that a better offensive line and more weapons will make any quarterback look a lot better. Look at Caleb Williams right now. So you could sign Malik Willis. Going to be expensive, though, and unless you're committing to Malik Willis, I don't think he's someone you bring in for a battle. Same thing applies for C.J. Stroud, who is a buy low candidate right now. I mean, he is an Ohio State product. We do love Ayo. You could bring him in, who probably is only worth a second rounder at the moment with how bad he just played. But I know a lot of people don't want to trade for more Texans quarterbacks. I get that. I just bring that up because there are no guarantees for Shedeur. even though I saw some good, I can't confidently sit here and say he's earned the role next year. He hasn't earned franchise quarterback status at all. There still should be a competition. It shouldn't just be gifted to Shedeur. I do think he showed more than any other quarterback on the Browns roster last year, and that's not a high bar, but it is a fact. He showed more flashes than all of them. So it's not guaranteed he's your starter. It still should be a little bit of battle, but it should be a fair battle. He should be given reps. He should be in this competition from day one. And with a better system, I think it will look better. So let's sum it up. How do you fix the Browns? Well, one, you either hire Sean McDermott or you hire Grant Udinski. Those are my coach candidates for Cleveland. Culture guy, offensive genius you're going to take a swing on. Maybe it's the next McVay. You get a new offensive coordinator. Unfortunately, Mike McDaniel, not an option to be your OC. A lot of the dream candidates are going to be off the board. But a Nate Shieldhouse or someone like Thomas Brown, the Patriots pass game specialist, maybe one of those guys could be available. You get a new OC that the head coach chooses. You keep Jim Schwartz. Probably the most essential thing in all of this, that Jim Schwartz is still here. Because if you're going to take that swing, you're going to need a guy who's been a head coach before to keep the culture going, some sustainability, and the defensive guys in the locker room, they love Jim Schwartz, and we love what he's done with the defense. You draft offensive linemen first. That is your first priority this offseason in the NFL draft and in free agency. You draft and sign a couple big guys to protect the quarterback, okay? So like I said, that could mean literally going out and signing a bunch in free agency, and some of them will be expensive. But there are a lot of good names out there, and I will report when Cleveland does what they should do. I also say draft Denzel Boston. That's how you're going to get your next wide receiver. He should be available late in the first round. Take that swing on a guy who is a young, promising rookie and will be on a rookie deal. Not going to want $30 million like George Pickens, who's a hothead in free agency. Finally, you let Shedeur develop with the new coach this offseason. He'll get reps in training camp this time, which is something he didn't get before. And hopefully he'll go out there behind a better offensive line and with another pass catcher that catches the ball, not like Jerry Jeudy. There it is. Fixed. Solved. We're winning it all. Comment your offseason plan for the Browns down below. If you got some steps that you want to outline down below, I'm all ears. So comment what your plan would be to fix Cleveland in 2026. Those are the 5 steps I really think could turn this thing around quicker than experts are anticipating. Give me a follow on X/Twitter as well. If you want to hit me up over there, tell me anything you thought about today's show. I'm open. I answer DMs, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Find me there, all social media platforms. And as always, hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on daily Cleveland Browns news and rumor videos. Appreciate you guys so much. Hopefully the Browns turn this thing around, man. I'll have you posted on who they hire and if they follow my plan. So hit that sub button, and I'll see you next time.